Hey, Florida Tech family, it's Anushka back again for our third and final series of how to create the best presentation ever. Today we have a super special treat for you because we are not only joined by Paulina and Jared, but my partner in crime, Jason Griggs. Jason, tell us a little bit about your background and what you currently do for the university.
I started teaching in 1999 in Japan, teaching middle school. Since I've been at Florida Tech, I have been an instructional designer, and now I am the associate, one of those words, director of the Department of Academic Technology, which used to be the Department of Instructional Technology.
And before that, probably CTLE, amongst other things.
Yes, and I've got experience teaching at the university level as well. I still teach as an adjunct for the communications department. It's exciting.
Jason keeps our department exciting as well. So Paulina, tell us a little bit about the presentation that we're going to go over today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome again to our podcast, last part of our amazing journey together. I hope it could be more than this in the future. But today we're going to see some interesting features about data presentation. So especially because we're a technology university, sometimes professors tell us that it's challenging to present data, how to make it engaging, and how can we incorporate some of the first concepts that we were talking about in our first sessions. So, data unlocked.
Dun, dun, dun.
Impactful visuals in PowerPoint. So the first thing we're going to see is that today we're going to cover how to present data with clarity and ensuring that every visual element is purposeful. Thank you. I learned that word.
Good job. Way to go, Paulina.
Yay. And engage your students effectively. And create and select impactful data visuals. But I want to start with a quote that I really is really inspired for what is coming, and I'm going to read through it. Maybe you can read it along. So it says, "Few people will appreciate the music if I just show them the notes. Most of us need to listen to the music to understand how beautiful it is. But often how we present statistics, we just show the notes. We don't play the music." What do you guys think about that?
Looking at sheet music can be pretty boring if you don't know how to read sheet music. Most people just enjoy listening to a song and they get a strong emotional reaction from that, but reading a piece of paper.
Jason also has background in musical performances, so I think you can.
And I can't read music. Yeah. I do it all by ear and just instinct. So, I mean, like the basic level I can read. So that's pretty boring.
Yeah. And what I like about this quote is that also points out how difficult sometimes it is to engage the audience with boring data, like numbers sometimes are hard to be engaging. So we're going to see how we can improve these practices in especially in lectures and, of course, PowerPoint. That's why we're here. So moving forward with this wonderful quote, we're going to talk a little bit about signal-to-noise ratio. So when you're building data slides, it's all about boosting the signal-to-noise ratio, or SNR, which is just a fancy way of saying important stuff. So the signal should stand out, and the extra clutter, all the noise should be kept to a minimum. If you want your audience to understand the message, try not to pick up from a bunch of unnecessary extras. So keeping it clean and clear. Remember when we talked about, Anushka, about cognitive load theory?
Yes.
Okay, so as we saw in our first session, to keep learners to absorb the information more effectively, the cognitive load theory suggests that we have to break down small pieces, small chunks of information. So the idea underneath this is to simplify the visuals and only presenting the essentials. So we avoid the extraneous cognitive load. And also to cultivate the germane load. If you haven't, please go and check our first session of the podcast when we talk about this subject. So go ahead and take a look at that. Do you guys wanna say something before we start showing the good stuff?
The good stuff.
The sweets.
I feel like today should really be more about Jared and Jason, since
Yes.
they're the newest to join us on the podcast.
Is this Fight Club where I'm supposed to fight? First night of Fight Club,
Jason.
you must fight. I didn't know it was going to be like this.
I didn't know we were supposed to talk about it.
I thought we were coming to pet some dogs here in the library. I didn't know we were doing that.
That was yesterday.
No,
or
it
2
was
days
the day
ago.
before.
Yeah, you're
Yesterday
right.
was cats.
You guys
You're
conned me. You guys conned me.
Well, so Jason, tell us a little bit about in the classroom, right? Whenever you're teaching your students, what are some trends that you see in terms of like times of day that you teach versus the material that you're teaching? Like, do you see any trends? Like if it's early in the morning, you have to kind of pivot the way that you instruct the students because they're slow to start, or if there's certain content that's like really heavy, you maybe break it down into smaller chunks.
Oh, certainly chunking is something I always keep fresh in mind. I mean, students today have less attention span, of course, thanks to the Tic Tacs and the Insta faces or whatever.
Yeah.
And so,
Skibbity.
I mean, I really
Riz.
concentrate on breaking complex topics into manageable chunks. The time of day thing, yeah, but I'm only teach one class now as an adjunct. So,
Right.
But I did see that more when I was teaching full time at the previous university where I worked. But then again, sometimes like a morning class would be super energetic, and then you'd have 4 in the afternoon that would be dead.
Yeah.
It seems like that's more depending on just the personality of the class,
Okay.
the students in the class. I find
But sometimes I have found that after lunch, it can be a really tricky time to teach.
that's the worst one.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
because everybody's all like carb loaded and like, I mean, Panther dining is delicious, right? But it's hard. No matter what school you're teaching at, that's the most trickiest part. It's all that digestion process is hard for the cognition to happen.
But I think the chunking your materials helps combat that a little bit. If you're energetic, you're not just dumping tons of noise on them.
Yeah, it's really good for that germane cognitive load, because that is where the stuff in your working memory is getting transferred into your previous experiences. Like it's kind of added to the library of information that you keep inside your head, and that's what the germane load theory is. It's taking that information and folding it into your previous experiences, your knowledge about things. So that's what we're really looking for, right?
Yeah.
Would that be something like talking about current events, right? So something that's very relevant to your students, and then finding a way to thread, like you said, Jared, like thread that into the course material.
Well, more importantly than threading it into the course material, it's threading it into the experiences that the learner has already had.
Okay.
Because in order for them to make sense of the information, they have to relate to it. If I tell you something like, I don't know, a subject that you don't know, but let's just say I asked you about like a Bose-Einstein condensate, you might be like, what
Right.
is this? I have
Very
nothing
much
to
so.
connect it to. So it's like, it might as well just be a slogan or something, right? But if somebody could take that to you and say, atoms, right? If you lowered the temperature down really, really, really low, almost to absolute zero, the atoms in that substance start behaving as one. So you can test quantum effects that would normally happen on a single atom. You can apply that to a whole system of material. And so this is like theoretical concepts. So now you have a better idea because I've used some language that maybe you have heard before.
Right.
So that's the idea here, is that germane cognitive load is you taking that information and putting it into the library that consists of you, of all of your thoughts and memories and your experiences. So that's what we're really going for when we're teaching, generally.
Right.
Now, when we're teaching multimedia, with glowing screens and stuff like that, then we have to do that, especially at a school like this, because we're talking about crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, because you have a bunch of experience as teachers, as instructors, it's very important that now we're going to see some examples. The idea of today's podcast is more about talking about, what do you think about the graphical elements I'm going to show you, what we can maybe improve, we can say, or how can we, make more like a storytelling. We talk about storytelling in our last podcast too. So we're gonna try to revise and remember those concepts too. So I'm gonna go again in the presentation, and we're gonna talk about what to keep and what to cut out. Again, this is just suggestions, not a rule. It's more into the suggestion part. So, for example, I'm going to show you one example. So, what do we think about that?
Public and private expenditures on health. I can't even read that.
Well, I mean, I can read the title and I can see that there's a whole lot of countries at the bottom and a whole lot of two colors.
Yep.
That would, if I saw that in class as a student, I think I would just turn off and go back to my device.
Exactly.
Or like, I can find that in Canvas later. Why do I need to listen to this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's
right.
nothing.
Right.
Nothing seems important because nothing looks important.
Exactly.
Yeah. For me, visually, the background, Paulina, the background, the color, right? We talked about color theory and things like that. It conflicts with the red and blue, in the bar graph. So it's conflicting and noisy, right?
Here's what my pea brain thinks is that you see the background, how it kind of has this sort of gradient effect where it goes up into the upper left hand corner. Mm-hmm. It looks like that is the pattern of air going into a vacuum. So in other words, it sucks.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have the bottom to say.
Yeah. So Jason made this. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, no, I didn't.
Jason.
That has nothing to do with my class.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it from a visual perspective, right? Like Jared, you pointed out the background. It's going, to me, I see it going from the top left to bottom right. To me, that's trending downwards. But then you have the actual information where it's trending upwards. So you have like this big X, right? You conflicting visual focus points.
So this is what the improvement of the same graph. And we can see in the second one, for example, things that you talked about, for example, data that is simpler to read and just points out or highlights the most important information. What if we have all this other information that we are seeing on the first chart and we include it in for example, in a handout for the students?
Sure.
Like more detail in the handout?
Yeah. There's still things that are not completely close for me in the second example, but just keep in mind that the book that I took the examples from, this data is from 2007, so it's a little bit outdated. But it's just a way of pointing out what can we do to improve our practices in data presentation.
Well, I'm thinking about this from an instructor perspective. If I was going to thoroughly cover the first one with all the noise, with all those countries, and go into depth about that, that would take me hours to cover. It would just be sitting on that one slide for hours. Whereas the second one, obviously there's some highlights there that I wanted to talk about. So
definitely.
Signal up, noise way down.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, to use some of the words that you had before, the vocabulary that you were using, that extraneous cognitive load, all of those design elements and the sucky background and the too many things.
X's.
Right. The minor fonts and like all these things. My brain is thinking about how bad that slide is rather than what information is on there. So I'm engaging with the slide, but I'm not thinking about what the professor thinks. The engineered program is not engineered.
And the fact that like all of us had a slightly different interpretation of the elements, like one, I see it going up, I see it going down. That's a problem, right? If that's your message is getting lost if you're an instructor. If people are starting to think, well, is it moving up? Is it moving down? Is there an X?
More
How can I
noise to
redesign
signal.
that slide?
And I think you guys are closer to the monitor as well. So for me, I'm really struggling, right? So if I was a student in the classroom in the back, I'm like, okay, there's lines. I get the general idea. And now I have to focus more on what you're saying. But if there is critical information that's visually being represented, now I'm missing out on that because I can't see in the back of the class.
That's a key point, though, that I think a lot of people don't think about enough is how can you see that as a student from all points of a classroom? I mean, I think a lot of instructors are in front of their computer, 2 feet away and like, well, it looks good to me. And they're not considering how that's going to look on a big glowing screen in the classroom and here at Florida Tech,
there's some
all in
auditoriums.
engineering 118 is very different than a room in Scurla, for example, but there's some large ones in there. And
one of the best things you can do as an instructor, I think, is to consider the viewpoint or what your students are doing. I mean, I think just generally the way a well-prepared professor comes to the classroom is they know exactly what's going to happen with that student's mind, well, to a certain extent, when they walk in the room, And so the experience that the student has when they walk in the room, they sit in the chair and they're paying attention to this glowing screen. And if it's well designed, then the intention of the professor, which is probably the learning objective, right? The intention of the professor is actually going to succeed, rather than just not and fall flat like that particular slide.
Yes, very interesting. So also, other than the data itself, we can also add some graphic elements to it. So because data is important, but we also have to appeal to the feelings and other visual elements that can be more engaging for. But there's one big issue about it, and we're gonna see it in the next slide. So the image are powerful, but has to be intentional as well. So the image can be incredibly effective, but they should serve a purpose, right? So for example, in this first case, we can see that we have, and let's put it on, quotation marks, engaging, but it has maybe could have the opposite effect. I don't know what you guys think, but there's many things that I really don't like about this image, and it's not the image itself. I think it has to do with maybe colors, backgrounds. What do you guys think?
I'll go first. Yeah, there's silence in the room.
We're flabbergasted.
Yes.
They're thinking.
For me, what stands out is the picture of the sushi with the chopsticks, right? There's a harsh white background. It's just like slapped on top of the blue background. And it almost lines up with some of the data presented there on the left. So, in the previous podcast, we talked about the differences in finding high quality images, right? And transparent backgrounds. So, the white background is not necessary, but if you're going to have a white background, then maybe the whole background of this slide needs to be white to match that.
Oh.
And I think it draws the eye. I mean, that harsh white background, which takes away from what the instructor's trying to actually teach. Like, why is there I know it's about Japan, but why the random piece of sushi there?
Exactly. Now I'm thinking about food.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about food.
Surprise.
And it's talking about, obesity in Japan, and you have the lightest possible food, like one piece of sushi, which probably has 4 calories with thin chopsticks, which I guess the rate of obesity is low, so maybe that matches a little bit, but
you don't know what the message is really trying to say.
Are you trying to say that 3.2% of Japanese are obese, or or you can switch the things around and say, the other percentage, 97.8.
Yeah.
Math is hard. Math is hard.
It's not obese, right? That's more powerful than the other one.
Like Japanese are the healthiest in this region.
And this food is the reason why.
See, I don't get any of that when I look at this thing. When I see this slide, I go, why is the white box so close to the word obese? It's driving me crazy.
Oh, yeah, it's driving me crazy. But Anushka touched a good point there. And she said, what if we make, because we have a white background, why don't we make the background white?
Oh, look at that. No distractions.
Yeah.
My mind is so happy.
Right?
It just looks clean.
Yeah. So, of course, the background, the white, ugly background disappears to match the white of the slide. So it has a better contrast. It's easier to read. And I just want to remember you guys that we have small videos in our website to how to choose and select good quality pictures without background if you want to still use a colorful background. So check that out, and it's going to be very helpful if you want to add some of these graphic elements into your slides.
And also use this as a resource, right, Paulina?
Yes.
I mean, we both studied, visual design, and, Jared and Jason, you guys are definitely experienced in that as well. But, we're here to support and give ideas. So don't feel like making a PowerPoint presentation is solely on you, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of resources available.
Yeah.
I mean,
helpful.
that little bit about picking images, I mean, I just want to say that when I make a presentation, I have very few words in my slides. It's image-based because I want it to tell a story, but it takes a long time. I mean, it takes time to get a good image and a good graphic. I mean, you really have to put the work into it, and that's what takes me the most time is picking the best images and tying it into the story
And seeing how it flows, right?
helping the learners connect with the message. It has to be powerful and intentional, but it does take time, and you have to put in the work.
It's a lot of work, and we talked about previously. That's why we wanted to do this training, because making a PowerPoint, a good PowerPoint, powerful PowerPoint, it's something that takes time. It's something that is hard. It's not easy, but if you do it well, then you can have that PowerPoint for many years to come, and you don't have to, rework on it every time you lecture the same class. You can recycle that PowerPoint. It will be equally effective. You can, shift a couple of things, but you can still have that, practice and that, workflow, and, it's a good practice. So.
And you get better at it. I mean, it gets quicker, but I mean, does take a lot of work not to just dump tons of text.
Yeah.
Or some quick some smart graphic that PowerPoint created. I just hurt Jared with that one. But that's what a lot of people do. And
Painful.
but every semester, my students are like, "You have weird PowerPoints," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not just reading them to you. They're not from a publisher. I'm sorry."
And there's
Welcome to the new world, children.
Yeah.
That's a good review.
Yeah, it is a good review.
Yeah.
But it's still happening. So, I mean, the bad PowerPoints, they're still getting those in other classes here at Florida Tech, still in high school. I mean, they're just stunned to not see text bombs.
Yeah. And I want to say something, but this is just a personal opinion. I don't think there is a course in high school or, even middle school that teaches kids to make presentations. And that I think that's something that needs to happen. They need to teach kids from young ages to have better, to use the tools correctly, because they are there for a reason, and it's not to pour text into them.
And there's a lot of tools too. Sorry, Jason. There's a lot of tools, Paulina, that you've used and you talk about a lot as well in our previous podcast series as well, right? Like AI, it's on the rise. So there's a lot of other tools that you can use to help you streamline the process and find higher quality images, or even Canva, right? Like they have pre-made templates, so it's not like you have to do a lot of the legwork.
That's true. You just have to. I think it's the thinking work. That's the part that makes kind of what Jason was saying is. It's sort of poetry in a way. You're kind of condensing down these ideas so that they're delivered in a way that someone will absorb and make part of their own thoughts. Add it to that germane cognitive load. That's the goal. And if we take the time to really think about the story and make what it is that we're presenting memorable, instead of just like, oh, just slap this there, oh, just put that there. I need 3 bullet points. Okay, title done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that is, personally, I think that's irresponsible. I believe in teaching is a very sacred event that happens. And so if you take a sacred event and make it a trifle or whatever, make it something that who cares, that doesn't help with any part of your course. And your students are going to think strangely of you. Matter of fact, you may even get an impact on your review. Evaluations are, if a student thinks you're wasting their time, and you kind of are if you're giving them bad PowerPoints, because what they're going to do is they're going to go, okay, I remember what they said. Now I'm going to go learn about it
on
when
YouTube.
I go home on YouTube, right? And so that's, to me, it's like, why do they pay to go to school?
Yeah.
We're, a school like this is a private school we're working at, right?
Right.
We are better than that. And that's what
We should be better than that.
we should be better than that. You know,
Well, and that's why we are doing this to, because I cannot blame teachers for doing this, because we have all been there in
Yes.
some
Yeah.
point.
Yes.
That's
So
true.
we are here to learn as well.
That's right.
And we continue to grow, right? I mean, like there's things that evolve and change over time. Like I'll learn things from Jason and Paulina, Jared, when we have conversations like this, I make a note, I'm like, okay, the next time I teach somebody something, I want to implement this, or, just we're always growing. Like we shouldn't ever be comfortable with being stagnant.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I've taught this for 10 years. So information isn't going to change, but it might, right? Like trends change all the time.
Or how people feel about something can change. Maybe calculus hasn't changed in a few hundred years, but maybe how people feel about it, if all of a sudden you're talking about how the weight changes as a rocket launches and it burns fuel, and you want to be an aeronautic engineer, that's going to be way more meaningful to you than just the math itself.
Right.
The applied stuff, I think, is super important. But of course, theoretical stuff is also cool to talk about as well, because it leads to the next thought. So.
Yeah.
Yep. So we talked about, for example, the simplicity and how to, get rid of backgrounds, maybe, gradient backgrounds and stuff like that. But we talked about how less is more, but sometimes, this little tiny piece of graphics helps. So, for example, we have like a very plain graphic that is very, like we saw on the first slide, that is data that is simple represented, but it's not telling me much. It's not telling me a story, which is something that I want to see. So in the presentation sent by Reynolds, they have this example, and next to it they have this other example that it's not a bad. It's a good improvement from the first one. Don't get me wrong.
It tells us a little story. You're like, someone rode their bike to the beach.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I believe that for 2007 it was a good improvement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if we move on into 2024, and this is something that I made for for today, but with the same 2007 data, is.
Oh, wow. You made that?
I made that.
I love it.
I made it. So it's the same data, but again, I want to impulse the storytelling. Remember, Anushka, we talked about storytelling in our previous session, and how important it is to tell something, to feel engaged in something that relates to you.
Right.
Right?
And it's modern, right? I mean, it's nice to have that high quality image of the bike on the beach, but a lot of things now are infographics and, social media, everything is very visual focused. So having that design that you made, Paulina, I think is really nice because it has more fun colors and it looks kind of like comic-y, but in a fun, modern way.
Yeah, I like the color scheme because it brings energy. The first two examples were, you share the bike on the beach. That's a nice story. I like going to the beach, but it was kind of gray and washed out. It looked like
Like a sad beach,
like a
sad bike
cold
ride.
beach in England or something.
I expect to see it like a drowned body in the wave.
Oh, good. That got dark really fast, Jared. Wow.
Well, it was 2007.
Yeah.
Good times though. All right, so if we move on, I'm going to show you another example from the Reynolds book about the balance, the simplicity with emotion, which is like the sushi one. Again, we have a graphic element right here that incorporates well to the slide. And so again, I'm going to recall what's the right tool to do this. It's, remember, we have the Google Images search, and then we have to go in the tool section and choose from the color transparent, and then you can get the PNGs images from there and just copy and paste them to PowerPoint, and you won't have any background in those. So just to recall how's the technique to do that, right? I'm gonna move on into the next example, and so we remember those 2 and 3D graphics from Excel. We're gonna see a few of them, but you tell me. And in the book, they say that 2D is better than 3D, but I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna kind of disagree with that because of the new graphic techniques or trends. But I wanna see what you guys think. So this is the first one.
Yeah. Sorry.
Remember, we can hear you, Jason.
I think it's easier to go wrong with 3D. I
agree.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
it can be done. It's just easier to make a mistake, or it can go bad.
Well, it doesn't tell your story. I mean, what does that look like? It looks like gummy rectangles or something. I don't know.
You kind of lose the perspective.
I want a snack.
Of course you do.
You kind of lose the perspective, right, of the values of the numbers, right?
It's Jello.
Yeah, the 3 on the left side. I mean, there's no difference.
Yeah.
For me without
The spacing, right?
Yeah.
And the ones furthest back / furthest left, depending on how you're looking at it, right? Like the colors blend together.
Yep.
And you have to look at the numbers that are on top of that.
Yeah.
The bar now.
If you, for example, the easy fix for this is just making, a plain graph. But again, we are not telling a story.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm looking at this. When my eyes hit that slide, I don't care. I'm not going to look at it. Back to my phone.
I don't really care about it. I mean,
but it's better than the first one.
It is.
The 2D is better than the 3D.
Yeah, 2D is better than 3D, but only by a.
But I want to show you a couple of examples when 3D really makes that storytelling going on, and they don't have any accurate data or anything. They're just templates. But look at this.
Oh wow!
We have 3D graphics that really make our story better, and especially the first one, the one with the containers,
the inkjet.
Yeah, it looks like that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Like
cartridges.
Imagine this in a chemistry class, for example.
Sure.
When we talk about
Right.
liquids, that's the first thing that comes in my mind. But I really like that all the containers are the same height, but the liquid inside, I say liquid because it looks like. I don't know what you guys think about this first example. And in the second one, we still have the classical pie chart, but again, it's presented in a way that is, dynamic or has some movement in it, and I really like how this data is displayed. What do you guys think?
I like the pie chart. If you were doing something like hurricanes or something like that with the little swirl, I mean, if you had some data about,
that's a good point.
depending on what the topic is, I think if you match topic with graphic, then you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because I was thinking about, having those 2 images, Paulina, that you had on there. And the one that looks like liquid, to me, it's like it's giving you a focal point, right? So if you look at a traditional bar graph, how do you quantify a number, right? Are you thinking about, okay, 37 birds, or when the topic isn't even about birds, but you need something visual to quantify that so that it makes sense, right? Like if you talk about a distance, it's like, I don't really know how long that is, but if you say 2 football fields, maybe that would be more relevant and you have a point of reference.
Storytelling. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other thing that I want to say is that, for example, professors will say, "Hey, Paulina, well, yeah, you're a graphic designer. You can do this very easily. What can I do? I'm not, computer savvy. I cannot, design these things." Remember, we have another small video about how to find this kind of examples. Remember, we have FreePic, which is the place that I got this from, and they're easy to edit. So if you don't have computer skills or design skills, you can also recall those helping small videos on how to make this happen. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna move into the next part of it.
Wait, I would just like to say,
sure.
The pie chart is cool. I can get a better idea of how much something is, but it's going to depend on what is being talked about, because it doesn't by itself. It doesn't, like the other one reminds me. Okay, how much people spend on like inkjet, or something like this, because it just looks like something that would be in a printer. But the other one, I don't know what that would be. Like,
You'd have to have the story, right?
Yeah, I need the
Whatever
story.
the story
Yeah,
is.
to add a context. So I don't really have an opinion of that one. It's empty.
But
It could be good. It could be good with the story.
Right.
But that's
right.
why I wanted to show you this without data, because, for example, Jason came up with the hurricane thing. You got with the inject thing. I called, the chemistry class thing. I like this dynamics because it makes us think about what this could be.
So
And
yeah,
this is a
you have to
good
match
conversation.
whatever you're trying to get across to the students, your objectives with
Exactly.
the image, and then you get the emotions, the story, and it all ties together. It's not just some boring graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's best to have like an idea of what the story is that you're telling, and then go pick your graphics and stuff like that.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
I mean, I guess
Definitely.
now that I say that out loud, I was like,
I'm excited to see the slides that you guys made.
I didn't make one. I found the best example ever.
Oh, nice.
oh my gosh.
Hold on.
Using resources.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
spoilers.
One of my
please.
favorites.
All right, so I'm gonna show you now. The other part of the presentation is show you how are the different parts of how to present data, and what are the best practices for showing this data. But again, this hasn't much to do with design, more about the types of data presentation there are there. So we're gonna start with the tables, right? The tables.
Boring.
Because, for example, I don't know, in database, we see a lot of these kind of features. One thing that you can do to make this better, or not make better, but for example, to focus or talk about a certain thing, we will have to recall the Myers principle of multimedia learning for segmenting and signalizing, for highlighting the important data. I also have a small video about this.
It's on the same page too, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the other one?
Sponsored by Paulina.
Yeah,
I know, right?
So
I forgot we got the plug. This is a podcast. We always have to plug every few minutes. Right?
yeah,
I have a question. There's a video for that.
Academic technologies.
yeah. If I was a YouTuber, I will say, look at it right here, but I don't have it. So,
You
One
don't have
day.
to like or subscribe.
well, moving on to the next data presentation, we have the classical graph, the bar graph. They're better when you have comparison, complex comparison, right? And the same thing with the pie chart, the classic pie chart, which is this same display as the graph, but this one is for fewer, right? When I show you my example, this will make more sense. Then for statistics, for other mathematical concepts, we also have the classical line charts. If we recall the one that I made of the bikes, it's pretty much the same thing, but you can add the storytelling to it, right? But it's just a way of showing you this is better for trends, for comparison trends, right? And the last one, and the one that we want to talk about more, is about the narrative techniques, which is how to use storytelling, graphical explanations to improve understanding and retention. I have a few examples from Reynolds here, and when we had our meeting, they are very outdated. So, but I'm going to show you a couple of examples. These are 4 examples of how these narrative techniques work, and what do you guys think about this?
I bet Anushka's hungry because her
Actually,
stomach's only 80% full.
well, yeah. Well, I was going to focus on the tree one because later when we go over our little secret exercise, I'll use that as a guideline, but we'll go into that later. But I like how, there's more of a visual element, right? It's not a traditional bar graph. You have like the American flag. What is that? France? I can't see from back
France,
here.
yeah.
France, yeah. So you have, a visual way of representing data that's different and non-traditional, but still captures the attention of the audience.
Yep.
To me, the cigarette one's the best.
Yeah,
It is.
Yes, definitely.
I mean, that image is very powerful, I think, and adds to the story and the message of the slide and the data.
You know what I was thinking about the cigarette one is that we want to point out who smokes the most, right? So the bigger smoker should be the one that it's over sooner. I don't know. I don't know.
I
That's
see
a
what
good
you're
point.
saying.
Yeah.
From a smoker's
From
perspective, right?
smoker's
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
who smokes the most. So it's kind of flipped
Yeah.
the information. I don't know. I was thinking
Or somebody
of
that like for a region that likes to smoke, they want the full cigarette. I think it's what maybe, but
maybe.
again, like it's different
Yeah.
perception.
Yeah, that's right.
For nerds thinking how we could redesign the slide.
Totally.
Flip things.
And this is why we work together.
This is fun for us.
Yeah.
It is.
No, it is. I'm not joking. It is fun for us.
It is fun.
I can almost smell that cigarette slide.
That's true.
That's not a cigarette.
Oh. wait, you gotta. Do we have to share the same camera? My eyes are watering.
Well, I'm going to show you good examples now of storytelling that I really like. And this is just a way of inspiration for our secret project that's coming up. So look at this. These are a few examples that I got from the internet, and I really like these ones. I don't know what the data is really, but I like this. I like the storytelling. Like I like because it makes a conversation happen. For example, in the first one, the vegetables. I don't know.
I think if you're funny, right? Like if not in an awkward way, but maybe that plays to your favor. I know like sometimes if I try to be funny in class, sometimes it translates well and sometimes not. So I think like having that punch of humor, right? It's like you're talking about something and all of a sudden you just throw this random fact or, graphic and everyone's all of a sudden like, what just happened? And now you re-engage the audience, right?
Well, that's a technique I think I use every class. I feel like I have to, just to amuse myself, but also just it'll bring students out of their device or whatever they're focused on. That's not me. Like, oh, this guy's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll pay attention.
Especially if the whole class starts giggling, then everyone's like, wait, what's going on?
Well, education learning is an emotional event, right? That's where the long-term storage is in the same spot that it's part of our limbic system, right? So working memory items go into long-term storage through that whole system, so the more emotional engagement you can have, whichever type of emotion you want to use. As a matter of fact, I'm going to challenge everybody right now to think about anything from their early childhood. If you can remember it, there was probably an emotional content to it.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Tying your shoe, I did it, yay. Getting that piece of birthday cake, I did it, yay. Wrecking on your bike and breaking your arm, I did it. It's no good. It doesn't have to be all
0 out of
happy.
5 stars. Do not recommend.
But that's why if you can use humor or any other emotion in class, except for terrifying your students, I would say.
Jason's like, I've done that.
He's giggling.
I may have. Yeah.
Humor is very, very good way to get. I call it makes the brain sticky. So that once the brain is sticky, you can start pouring in information and they remember it.
And I think it relaxes students, but then you have an in, right? They're like paying attention to you, but they're also relaxed.
Now you have to hold their attention too.
Yeah, they've oxygenated, they've laughed. It's a whole bunch of biochemistry that goes on.
Yeah.
It's super smart.
I like the jeans one. I don't know. I like it very much. The jeans one, the parts of the jeans and the composition. I don't know. From a graphic point of view or artistic point of view, I think I like that one a lot.
And it ties in with what's the data being presented as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Before you move on, I don't know if this is appropriate, but
Go for it.
the fact that there's a certain vegetable on that one screen and how that has been added to all the connotations of that particular vegetable these days through emojis. I killed Paulina, I'm sorry. But this can be edited out, but the fact that there's a certain vegetable that has a certain connotation because of emojis, if you're going for humor, that actually might be an attention grabber.
It works in your favor.
I think it does as well.
Yeah.
But
It's relevant.
you might have to be careful too for something like that. Maybe if you're, I don't know, of a certain age, maybe you don't know what the certain vegetable means in an emoji. I don't want to call it out, but I guess I could, but it doesn't matter. But
What are you talking about?
But the students might see that and start giggling unintentionally. So if you put that in there, you have to be a little aware of how that's going to play in terms of connotations, because your message could get lost if every student's thinking about the emoji and the meanings of the emoji, and not the point you're trying to make about the vegetable.
Think about this.
True.
It will create a memory, and they will remember it forever.
But you need to be intentional with that. But as an instructor, you don't want it to be the butt of the joke and like, oh, they're showing emojis.
Yeah.
And they don't even, and the instructor doesn't even know they're showing an emoji or something.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, no, it could be, but you have to be aware of it, I think, as the instructor.
Yes. Intentional is the key word. Yes.
To go back to intentional.
All right. So.
Sorry, but see, this is what you get for inviting me.
Well, now it's your turn, or our turn.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
always
besides
invited, starting with Jason.
Who's first? Well, this is the part. By the way, I haven't seen. I know what I gave Paulina for this section, but I haven't seen anybody else's work, and I don't even know who's first. I don't think any of us know what the next slide is except Paulina.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
True. Are you nervous?
Palms are sweaty.
All right, we're gonna go to the first one.
Yes,
Jason.
Jason.
Yes. This, by the way, is from a news station in Florida. I remember seeing this. Is from like I think like 2017. I don't remember. When did Zika happen?
Oh gosh.
I haven't heard that in a while.
That was Zima.
Oh,
that was Zima.
All right.
Yeah, that shows our age. The fact we know that.
Zika.
The question of this slide is, how concerned are you about the Zika virus? And apparently 13% is the highest number, even though I can clearly see 34%. And apparently the lowest is 28%.
Oh my God.
The more you know.
So Florida Man is not just for criminal acts. It's also for criminally bad data on news stations.
Oh my goodness.
This is one of my favorite examples of all time. And in our role here, all four of us in this room, we get to see a lot of courses. And to be honest, I have seen some of the Zika style level in presentations here at Florida Tech.
Not to name any names.
I'm not naming names, but I have seen that are that funny and bad. And imagine if you're a student and that pops up, you're just like, what? And Paulina said to keep the language clean. So what in the heck is this? I mean, it is Florida, so I guess maybe you get some leeway there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, I would like other people to react to that as well.
I took the opposite message away from it. Like, people aren't very concerned about Zika.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
That's what I see too.
yeah, it's
That's a lot of
terrible.
noise in there.
Yeah.
Lots of noise.
It's 13% minus from the top. 13% from the top.
I want to know how they
I don't
made
know.
that. That's what I'm thinking about. Where did you plug in this data?
Someone proofread it. I mean, there's editors, right, at news stations.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that looks good to me. Let's put it out to the public.
Okay, are you ready for the next one?
Which one's next? This is great. You guys, so this is really important information.
I can tell all of it seems important.
I just see number. I know that they're numbers. I think that they're numbers.
It kind of, if you squint your eyes right, it looks like somebody just peeled out.
It looks like, it looks like what's on the back of baseball cards back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
My dad would love this. He loves
I'm
baseball. He'd be like,
thinking-
oh, yeah, he had 40 home runs last year.
Aaron.
Yeah, but the subject is totally different. Do you want to see the Jared's improvement?
Oh, yeah. I made
Let's see it.
improvements to this. So that data was arson in Florida correlated with Google searches for where to buy toilet paper.
I was thinking of the pandemic when everyone bought up all the toilet paper.
Yeah, my brother did that, you know. He had
Really?
a picture of him with like 8 cases. And I was like, what are you eating?
Do you have something we need to talk about?
He lived with another person. It was like he had like these 5 big cases. He said, yeah, it's made out of bamboo. I was like, good luck, bud.
Well, that is more sustainable.
Yes.
Let me tell you, when we did this exercise, we said talk about something that you're really interested in.
Toilet paper.
Look, safety first. Well, go back to the slide. So this is a wacky graph too, you know. So you have there's two values. There's on the left side you have a y-axis of the arson rate, and then on the right axis, y-axis, you have number of Google searches, and the scale is off on each one. So
again, if we come back to the slide when we talk about comparison, you know, statistical comparison, this is the way to go, right?
Truth be told, I did take that data that was on the previous slide from a website that's all about spurious connections or spurious conclusions. So it's kind of implying that arson went up at the same time when people were wondering where to buy toilet paper.
Jeez.
So, which
causation and correlation.
It does tell a story. If you like, I don't have any toilet paper, might as well burn my house down.
Especially if you light the toilet paper on fire, then the story gets way more interesting.
Yeah.
And you add the fact it's from Florida, then who knows?
They're definitely going to buy a bidet after that.
No Zika concern?
No.
Lighting your toilet paper on fire? What can go wrong?
All right, crazy people. Let's keep going. Are you ready for the next one?
We're ready.
Am I next?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Anushka.
I say quote unquote, well, it's not bad data per se. This is a screenshot I took from Google Trends. So I just wanted to give context of what it looks like when you look at data initially.
Yeah.
Am I talking about what it is? Or are we waiting for the next slide?
Do you want to see your improvement?
The heart rate
Do
seems
you
steady. The
guys-
heart rate seems steady.
Oh, that's
It does look
interesting.
like a heart rate.
And
Well,
And someone
surprise.
Christmas Google.
Ta-da.
Oh, people were searching for Christmas, and that makes sense.
Yes. So basically, I kind of want to talk through a little bit of my process. Initially, I wanted to do a visual slide of the earlier people start selling Christmas decor. But as we know, things happen and we get busy, and I didn't have the time to pull that together and represent it in a nice, pretty way. So I had to pivot, and I looked at, okay, just Christmas trends, right? And so I took that screenshot, and then I looked at a template in Canva to see, because I didn't really have a starting point. Like, I knew kind of what I wanted to show. I wanted to replicate the data without it being, you know, extra complicated. So I literally, if you look at the Christmas trees, it follows the same line that I took from the screenshot, right? So I use the same kind of like background and like the snow bottom just for like added visual effect that I, you know, copied from the Canva template. But then I just found that picture with the transparent background, copy and pasted a few times. And the hardest part, like we talked about earlier, was brainstorming and coming up with what I wanted to do, how I wanted to demonstrate that. But then really putting this slide together took me about 15 minutes. But the planning part was the longest by far. So then once you have that data, right, I just copy and paste those things, change the dates down there. And actually, I also want to talk about the trends, because I was surprised. I thought that more people would be talking about Christmas as the years go on since 2020. But you can see that it looks like less people are researching that, which is interesting, because I know I've seen a lot of Christmas stuff being sold in the stores earlier, right? So I would think that people would be searching for like Christmas decor ideas or Christmas decorations, Christmas songs, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought it would be trending upwards, but it's actually trending downwards.
I have a thought on that, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I've shared an office with you before, and I know you personally will start trending upward for Christmas in like June or July.
You're right. So
But maybe
right.
not everyone follows that trend that you do, Anushka.
Guilty. I mean, that's a good point, Jason. And I just think it's interesting, because maybe if, again, how we interpret that data, it's like maybe it's trending downwards because, you know, people already have something from years prior. Or like, what does that signify, right? If less people are researching Christmas, what does that mean?
Well, there's a little burnout because
Exactly.
stores are pushing it earlier. People might be burning out a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly
I hear
what
a
I
lot
was
of people
thinking.
complain about that. Like, dang, Christmas stuff's in here already. And not just me.
Yeah.
Not just me. It's
I mean, I love Christmas too, but I mean, we have Valentine's Day stuff, and it's, I mean, early mid-December. it's just starting earlier and earlier. And I think people are getting over it, right? So it's like there comes a time where, you know, they're just checking out.
There's a couple things I really like about that slide that you created.
Thank you.
And I don't know if this was intentional, but, you know, as a 50-year-old man, grew up with the Charlie Brown Christmas special. The something about the font and just the style of the animation just brings me back to the Charlie Brown Christmas a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that is like invoking.
It triggers that your emotional response.
Yes.
Which
That
is
makes me
something
really
that
happy, Jason.
Yeah, no. And so I mean, the font too. I mean, everything about it is like, I'm thinking Charlie Brown Christmas. And so I'm instantly like, I'm feeling
Nostalgic.
good. And
See, this is a perfect example of germane cognitive load. He took the data from your slide and applied it to his own memories and made it his own, and has now his own story to go with it, which is I think
that's what we're looking for.
That's
actually.
right, exactly what.
But I'm super more engaged with it just because I'm just like, oh, look at that, and then I'm kind of drawn into it emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hard one to beat.
Save the best for last.
No, I wanted to save mine for last because that's the one I know, and because I was making this PowerPoint, it was boring to be the first one. Okay.
Not at all. Rip the Band-Aid, Paulina.
All right. So this is my bad data.
Paulina's bad data.
Yikes.
So I wanted to link something that we talked previously about pie charts and graph charts. So remember, the pie charts are for comparison, but when values are few, and bar charts are better when we have more complex comparison. So I wanted to make a shift to explain this data into more complex. That means more into the graph charts. But again, this will talk about the how people in San Francisco use transportation after COVID. That's the data. So you can see that people who drive along, walk, use the transit, the transportation, public transportation, drive with others, and so on. But I wanted to do something that talked more about a story. So this is mine.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Look at that.
So I wanted to blend the bar charts in something that will tell a story, and that's why I used the crossway.
Crosswalk, yeah.
Crosswalk, yeah. Thank you.
And that reminds me of the image in that one slide that looked like the chemicals in the boxes.
Yes.
So again, back to the point how we were talking about that it doesn't take a lot of work or initiation on your part, right? Like you can look at an example and then tweak it just a little bit to make it fit your presentation.
Yeah, and to go with the same thing that you were talking about, the thing that I spent more time, it was thinking about what I wanted to talk about,
right?
And how could I make it better? So, you know, what was very helpful was looking at just data, you know, anything, and I found that random, you know, pie chart, and I was like, okay, I can talk about this because, you know, and after that I found a picture in FreePic again, and after that I just went and, you know, colored the lines in the
boxes.
Yeah. And I think it took me also like 15 minutes to finish with.
You know, one of the things I like about this is that it implies motion.
Right.
And not only is emotion super important for brains to have, but motion is also good. We're wired for motion, you know. We've been hunter-gatherers for quite a while, right? So evolutionarily, we tend to pay more attention to things that are moving. So your slide there implies motion, and so I'm automatically interested because part of me is going, oh, where's the cars? Oh, where's the, you know, am I going to get hit? Maybe they're behind me. Am I in a car? Oh, it doesn't say, you know, so I'm telling a story already of my experience with
So to be fair,
roads.
I will say that probably the feeling of the bars, it's not very accurate. Like it's not like we saw in the 3D graph, that it's not very accurate, but it helps telling a story finally.
For me though, when you're talking about motion, Jared, I see it as forward motion though, because I have to read from bottom to top, right? Or backwards forward. So I like that we're looking at motion in like a forward sense.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even pay attention to that. Good eye. That's good.
Yeah, I like this conversation a lot.
Me three.
Let me show you. I found this animated GIF that I really like. Look at this. So this is a little bit like a conclusion of what we were talking about previously, because we're about to end this podcast. So this is from a company called Dark Horse Analytics, and they dedicate to do this. So this is very funny to watch over and over.
It's reducing the signal. Boosting the signal to noise ratio, right?
Yeah.
Look, it's a bar graph now.
But this is my favorite
Getting
part.
larger.
There it is.
There's the color.
Bacon in red.
All right. So to end things up, a quick recap of what we talked today. It's about, we review the signal to noise ratio in our presentations. We made decisions on prioritize most relevant information, but using images with clear purposes. Selecting the right graphic data presentation, and using impactful data to be engaging for our students. Do you want to make your final insights on today's session?
Anushka, you go first.
Oh man, again. I just think it can feel overwhelming, right? Especially when this is something new, and anytime that there's something new, it's very challenging, right? So I think using the resources that we have here, whether it be the tools or videos, or calling or emailing us for just a brainstorm, even just talk through some things, because I feel like that's usually more helpful for me, is, having an outside perspective, kind of give that feedback and just brainstorm some ideas, and then, using those tools to present data in a new way. And it doesn't have to be overnight or all or nothing, right? You can pepper it in until you get more comfortable and then make improvements.
For sure.
Jared?
So my whole thing with this, the most important thing that I'm taking away with this is make sure that not only do you focus on your learning objectives, but also learn how to tell the story so that it can be emotionally engaging and thought-provoking for your students.
Yes.
If you're going to present information, and this is like literally the reason you have your class, so it's super important. If you get your story there, so that the students will yes, they're gonna do better in the class. They're gonna provide results quicker. I think.
Yeah, I think you just have to be intentional, but you also have to work hard at it. Teaching is difficult. In some ways technology has made it easier, but there are some ways technology has made it more difficult. And I think PowerPoint's a great example of that. It's great for presenting information, but if you do it wrong, you could just screw up all your objectives and kind of miss the point of what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
But then again, the technology can really, really help you if you mesh it well with your objectives, the presentation you're giving personally, and also the visuals on the screen. It can become super powerful.
Yeah, and I've helped some teachers to make more engaging presentations, and I think the most difficult part is to think about what's the message that you want to give. And of course that's time consuming, but again, if you do a good job, then you can use this tool for many years to come, and it will come easier and easier. It's just like exercising. The more that you do it, the better that you get at it. So that's my final takeaway. Remember your power. A great power comes with a great responsibility. Remember, we talked about that before. So just want to say thank you to all for coming to our podcast.
A shout out Jason.
Yay.
Newbie.
I want to
Jared.
shout out to Paulina for putting this together. This is
thank you.
super bravo.
Thank you.
Great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's running the control panel over there. We're just sitting here doing nothing. I'm sitting here cracking jokes about emojis, and she's over there running the
Switching.
computer, the switcher, the soundboard.
Yeah. I'm taking your job as an MC.
Please do.
As an MC. Jason is a great MC, by the way. Okay, final thing, a little bit of our references for this session. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Breaking all the rules, engage the learners, take them far and wide in the virtual classrooms where the futures collide. Got a question about your teaching style?